individuals are and those who do not need to participate, which is equally as important. And certainly it talks about those who will be assigned to their home school and then those that are in terminal grades. And that's a fundamental part of our student assignment plan, has been for years. Also talks a little bit about Title I choice and the previous lottery that we had when we had Title I choice. You may know that was phased out, I believe, in May of 2012. So this policy has been updated in 2013 to reflect that has been phased out. So the next section primarily talks about our non-magnet assignments. Talks about every student will be guaranteed to attend their home school. And then talks about those exceptions. What happens if a student moves during the course of the school year? And we have always honored that child's placement through the end of the current school year. So the board has supported stability for that student. If they wish to continue, of course they have to provide their own transportation, but then the following year they'd be assigned to the new school based off of their new address. So it describes that.
So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
college.
Well, I was just going to say, number 3, the exceptions, and that being with our high school seniors, if you're in your 11th grade year and you move, you can certainly stay through that junior year, but also continue for the senior year as well.
I think for a lot of families, our current setup creates a rock and a hard place situation because, as Paul alluded to, you may have a school that academically is not succeeding. As a parent, we're asking you to trust us, send your child there anyway. And I almost feel as if we need to look at all 170 schools now.
164.
64. I'm putting the new ones that are coming online in the fall in there. We need to look at it and say, would we send our children or our grandchildren to that school? And if we would not, why not? And what needs to be done about it? Because we shouldn't have to put families and parents in that rock and hard place situation of having that feeling that this school is not going to meet my child's academic needs and the goals of our family. And I know what we have on paper, but how do we get to that place where they're not having to make those choices, and as Ruby alluded to, seek to flee, whether that's a magnet school, a charter school, a home school, private school, what have you. How do we get us to that place?
Right. Again, my purpose today is to very quickly.
We're raising questions, Scott.
No, this is good. This is all great, but I didn't want you to think that I was skipping over anything, that I was just taking a very high level kind of common speech.
Scott, we want to send you away feeling heavily burdened.
One question.
And I think that, Scott, this is one of those areas, don't go back to that one just before that about 4A2, that you and I have had talking about.
We
The
have.
last sentence, transportation will not be provided to students who elect to remain in the current placements for the remainder of the school year in which they move. No, and what I didn't get when we made that determination was that how important it was not to have changes in schools during the school year. And that I think that one thing could go a long way toward keeping kids in school when they don't have to change whole schools and change teachers and change friends just because they move during the school year. I get it if we're not looking for the next year and the next year and all that, but that school year, when we had a report, maybe before you joined the board too, that 2 or 3 changes in schools during the year can just absolutely destroy any chance of staying on regular for many students. And so here's a place where we could, but this costs us money because now there's another bus going through
Big
another
dollars.
neighborhood. And again, we were doing it to save money, but I think that educationally, to your point all the time, we have lost the ability to make sure that these kids are getting the best education they can get by saying, well, yeah, if you can get that, fine. We even have the Kenny Vento, as much as we do with the Kenny Vento, we have parents who move and keep bringing their kids back from the place from which they used to live to make sure they can get transportation, because they don't understand that they can get transportation from wherever they're staying. You know, and so imagine what that's like. To live somewhere else and keep being brought over blocks or whatever to that old bus stop. And they're afraid that if they tell us that they moved, that they're not where they used to be, that we'll take away.
Yeah, and that's an excellent
Go to
point.
school, do whatever.
It really is.
Subject matter expert, given some of the types of conversations we would like to have around student assignment, what pieces of this document do you foresee will change fundamentally? I mean, which pieces do you think need to change, and which pieces you say, oh, that, the language is fine, given the types of conversations you want to have, that will probably remain the same, these pieces are where you believe.
So I would definitely say that the guiding principles, those 2.5 pages, are fundamentally the most important in terms of setting the stage for the rest of the policy, as well as the scope of work going forward, and a discussion around each and every one of those, and coming to some consensus on where that is going, where that particular principle is going.
Who is leading those discussions, and when do we need to have an end product so that we can stay within the
Okay.
time schedule we go out for ourselves?
All right. So Kathy Mintzberg will be leading that in the May 26th meeting.
And go through each and every
Yeah,
one.
each and every one of the guiding principles, and really that was the focus, was just the guiding principles.
We have
There could be a
enough
lot of, well, we may have more time now. You know what happens with the magnet piece. That's why I'm not concerned at all that we won't find something to talk about in the period of time that we've designated by the example of this fine group that we have. And so I'm really optimistic and hopeful that there will be good discussion at that meeting around just those specific guiding principles, and at least there will be enough dialogue that there is a direction and a next step. And that may be part of the facilitator's work too, is to make sure that there are some next steps that come out of that meeting. Now, that may mean that, you know, there needs to be another follow-up meeting scheduled. I would anticipate that there would be. We've got that built into our calendar. But in order to meet the deadline of having student assignment changes done by November of 2016 to go in effect for the 17-18 school year, we've designated December as the point in time for which the board policies would need to be done, basically.
Is it
Changes.
done and presented in first, second reading to the community, or
Yes.
done as in first, second reading already been done?
Excellent question. Excellent question, because it takes about 2 months
Yeah.
for it to actually run through that approval process. And so I was really looking to have the vote on those in December. And my rationale is that if there are significant changes or changes that will take significant public engagement, we need to start that as soon as we can in January.
So you're saying vote on the guiding principles?
Well, the guiding principles are embedded as a part of the policy, as they are now.
But you want the whole policy by
But
December
the whole
of this year.
policy would be completed by December.
Of this year.
That is correct.
Okay, so that means the community engagement would have to precede that.
That's correct.
And not in the summer.
Right.
Yeah, we heard that. Thank you for that feedback. And so that work would begin in earnest in September.
Have we had a conversation with Mary and Tim about how that community engagement timeline would intersect with anything with the superintendent search? Because it seems like either you're gonna have two kinds of engagement button up against each other or overlapping, and just making sure from a messaging standpoint and just, and access to the community, we need to make sure that that's, maybe tonight, during our 4 hours, we can discuss that.
Yeah.
So that's the tentative plan that we have before you.